How many of you had that on your bingo card? How many of you had West Virginia running all over Oklahoma State in Stillwater? A stunner in Stillwater. It's my headline. It's probably everyone's headline, and it tells the story perfectly. The West Virginia Mountaineers beat the Oklahoma State Cowboys 38-14 and had control all throughout the game. WVU now 2-0 in conference play. That is a road conference victory. Obviously, the first win was at home, a comeback win over Kansas. Then the bye happened. And if you go back the last couple seasons, somebody actually asked me this on a show I appeared on this past week. West Virginia has struggled coming out of byes. They have two this year on both ends of a tough conference slate. They come out of this bye guns blazing, running all over the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and a big victory to maybe change some vibes, maybe get them back on the national map. No, they're not going to get a ranking out of this, of course, and Kansas and Oklahoma State have now been exposed as not great teams clearly enduring rough years, and Oklahoma State, it's rare for them. Usually they can fight back and get in the Big 12 title game like they did last year. They're looking at a bowl game at best here, and maybe their fans are sick of Mike Gundy, although he's a Hall of Fame coach and been there forever to tons of success. And Kansas bringing Jalen Daniels back didn't really work out, so they're kind of wasting some money there. But nonetheless, the Mountaineers are now 3-2 overall and 2-0 in conference play. Most importantly, again, the ground game clicking. Garrett Green did leave early with an injury. He then was able to clearly return and get right back going, picking up where he left off. Only 159 yards through the air, and I believe almost 90 yards on the ground. Double check, 86 yards on the ground, did have a touchdown. Jaheim White, 19 carries, 158 yards on the ground with a score, a 26-yarder being his longest of the day, and he averaged 8.3 yards per carry. That's insane. Markiel did throw a laser beam touchdown pass to Traylon Ray when he came in to replace Green. So he did have to play a little bit in this game, obviously. And it didn't look like they changed the playbook that much. The coaches said they wouldn't with him. He had progressed a lot. He looked a lot better in camp this year in comparison to the year before when he did play a couple games and won. But the kind of Nico good luck charm still works because Green's injury, yes, he returned, obviously, and led the way, but it didn't force them to miss a beat at all, and Oklahoma State never found momentum. They switched up quarterbacks. Even when they scored, it never felt like they had a chance at all to come back. C.J. Donaldson, 77 yards with 2 touchdowns, 3.9 for himself. Markiel did run for 46 yards, even though only 10 through the air. So you get the idea. The West Virginia Mountaineers had it all going, clicking on all cylinders. Their best first half rushing performance of 259 at that point on the ground since 2015 back to with Dana Holgerson, by the way. And of course, way better than anything's happened under Neil Brown, even though it's been a run first team, certainly at least these last few years. But most importantly, above all else, the West Virginia Mountaineers did win. And based on the current rules, even if you don't get ranked, it doesn't matter. And yeah, again, they're not going to get ranked off this win, obviously. But even if you never get ranked, it doesn't matter. If you win the Big 12, if you win a Power 4 conference, you are in the playoff. So they still have that very much in front of them, but a very tough opponent coming to Morgantown. It's at least in Morgantown with Rocco Beck, Anthony Beck's son, leading the Iowa State Cyclones to Morgantown under the lights, 8 p.m. I'm going to be there all freaking night, probably getting home at 4 a.m. They're going to debut the Cole Rush jerseys. Cole Rush uniforms are going to be on full display. The lights are going to be on. It'll be a night game that fans obviously always want, and it'll be against a really quality opponent. That's a ranked opponent. You beat Iowa State, then you're arguing for things, and then you're 3-0, and then you're in a driver's seat, and you're much higher on these percentages on who's going to win the conference. Nobody still believes in West Virginia after this win, but they did all they could on the road and also avenge last year's defeat at the hands of OSU as the Cowboys came back and beat them a year ago. Ollie Gordon ran all over the place. He did not much in this game and got hurt. And if you heard the commentary, because obviously I was home covering this game and did not make the trip to Stillwater, that might be it. He wants to preserve himself for the league. He's already put up tons of numbers and accomplished a lot as an individual. They did go to a Big 12 championship game last year on his back. Maybe he shuts it down and maybe that's it to preserve his future. What are you doing with Oklahoma State worrying about playing for a team that's crawling to 6 wins? Does it really matter if you get that 6 for a bowl or they fall and win 5 and you get money later on. Obviously, NAL money's there, but the NFL is his dream. So you probably knew a lot of that, but nonetheless, feel free to chat along, of course. This is our post-game show here, WV Sports Now, my game recap, our reaction, all of that over there at WV Sports Now. You can also, of course, find us on social, and I will plug Ethan Bach and I having Mountaineer Report Now, our podcast here as part of WV Sports Now on YouTube, but also everywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, etc. as well for the audio listeners. Misplaced Hillbilly, we do have somebody right now already with us. I'll enjoy this win, and the team looked good today. But Neil Brown's problem is consistency. We'll see how this finishes out. And that is fair. Obviously, again, Oklahoma State, not a great team this year. Now, 0-3 in conference play. Mike Gundy's only lost 3 games in a row, including bowl games. I think it's three or four times his whole career, only twice now, or this being the third time if you don't include bowl games at all. So it's very rare this would happen to Oklahoma State. I did not think this would happen. I did think they would avoid this and somehow win, but clearly they're just not a good team. It looks like their defense is a much bigger problem than worrying about getting the ball to Ollie Gordon. And it almost looked like at times they quit in this game, even though they did come back at times and score a couple touchdowns. But obviously that's very, very fair. And I'd love to get everyone's reaction here on what the vibes are now. And I said this on social media. You have this win. You have this win. You have the Kansas win. You're 2-0 in conference play. If you're sitting at 3-2 and 2-0 right now, if you were 4-1 and 2-0 and your only loss is to a Penn State team that is really riding high and still undefeated and looks like a Big Ten contender and a top 10 team, doesn't matter how good or bad Pitt is, and they're looking good, by the way. They haven't lost yet. They're 5-0 for the first time since the early 90s. If Pitt was dominating and winning and beating everybody, even if you think the schedule's weak, outside of the game against West Virginia, and they had that WVU loss and West Virginia held on and won the backyard brawl, could you imagine the situation at that point? Pitt's going to get ranked now after the win over North Carolina on the road. So if West Virginia had the victory over Pitt at 4-1 and 2-0 in conference play, no matter what you think of Kansas and Oklahoma State, and the only loss being to Penn State, West Virginia would absolutely be arguing for a ranking right now. And based on knocking on the door before the season, they probably would get a 24-25 spot in either the coaches or the AP poll. They did get 25th at the end of the season, the coaches last year. It doesn't matter. Again, it's over. It's not the case. They blew the brawl. They shouldn't have blown the brawl. The vibes were bad then, and understandably so. Conference play does matter more. And they can fix it if they win the conference, of course. And getting to Dallas is the ticket there. But imagine if they would have won the brawl. Imagine the vibes then. Yeah, the effort against Penn State really, really sucked and still a letdown, but I don't think anyone would really be harping on that if you had all these other wins and you're 2-0 in conference play. You have the rivalry brawl win. Penn State's not really a rivalry. The vibes would be way different. Fans are still reasonably like our viewer here saying, hey, pump the brakes. These are bad teams they beat, like a lot was the case last year, of course, in the 9-win season. Jake May didn't play in the bowl game. They had a lot of teams that they beat they thought were big games, like TCU, etc. Those teams got exposed. That's clearly the case with Kansas and Oklahoma State, but it's much better than losing. You lose this game, even though you're still kind of in it at 1-1, nobody would want to hear from Brown on Monday about how they're still in the race. Now 2-0, winning this way, not just winning on the road, because winning on the road would have still been a big deal. We'd be having a similar conversation. But winning that way, where they dominated and looked better than they have in years against a quality opponent with tons of talent, even though Oklahoma State is enduring a poor season, that maybe shows something and pumps some life, and maybe they're re-energized despite the really bad slate and out-of-conference play. So now we got some conversation moving going on here. Okie seems to be really bad, though. Is this really a big win? As I said, it's not a big win if we're looking at the overall career. This is not this is not the same as if we beat Oklahoma State a couple weeks earlier. There have been wins that Neil Brown can argue are big wins. He did beat ranked opponents, but then, of course, those opponents were no longer ranked soon after, or clearly were exposed as not really that good. So it's fair to still be looking for that major staple win. It's fair to say this isn't a truly big win. Obviously, this isn't a win that anyone's going to majorly brag about. If Oklahoma State only wins 5 games or something, I get all that. But again, it's the way they won this game. They didn't just win it. Guys, I thought they would lose the game. I'd imagine everybody here commenting probably thought they were going to lose this game. I thought Kansas was really, really bad. And yeah, they came back, but needing a comeback against a really bad Kansas team isn't much to brag about. I thought they would go to Stillwater and lose. Honestly, I said it. I wrote about it. I thought they'd lose this game. They won this game. And if you win this game, obviously that's what you need to do. It doesn't really matter whether they're big wins or bad wins or whatever. You beat Iowa State, even though it's at home. That will be, by the way, guys, that's going to be an official big win because they're a ranked team. That would hands down be a big win, no matter how you do it. But you also win this game on the road against a Hall of Fame coach, mind you. Still, he's a Hall of Fame coach no matter what they do this year. This way, yeah, this is the best WVU has looked. Not only all year, but this is the best WVU has looked in a while. This game of Oklahoma State off a bye week when they started slow off bye weeks before. Now 2-0 in conference play on the road against a desperate team that does get 5-star recruits. Oklahoma State does get them. They're arguably the blue blood of the conference now. You could say West Virginia maybe, but Oklahoma State is a consistent contender. This isn't just history. They are the blue blood of the conference, or one of. And to do it that way and just dominate them, shellac them, run all over them, stun them, embarrass them. Their fans are leaving early in the fourth quarter. Some left at halftime. They had stunned looks on their face all across the stadium. That was the camera shot, all on TV, all throughout the game. That's a little different where maybe there's life there. Maybe it can show you something. It does not excuse blowing the brawl. And I get that sucks for fans because even if you win the Big 12, you're going to hear it from Pitt fans. I totally get that. But this Big 12 is wide the hell open. Wide the hell open. Utah has already lost. Kansas State certainly is vulnerable. Oklahoma State is out of the picture, basically 0-3 now in conference play. Kansas does not nearly look like they were supposed to be. They're basically toast and done. I do think Arizona is a little overrated, even though they've been winning, but they will have West Virginia at home. So I've always penciled that as a WVU loss. We'll see. Colorado, they were really bad last year. They're obviously 2-0 in conference play, but as I'm speaking, but they could lose. They could be vulnerable. Their defense, their offensive line, still problems for me. UCF has been exposed, even though earlier in the season people thought they were going to be better than advertised. They've been exposed at times. They're not dominant. Cincinnati, the same thing. Houston is out of it, even though they beat TCU. I'm not trusting Houston to be anything this year. TCU looks like they're certainly not a conference champ, even if they're going to eventually be good. I mean, they've been vulnerable. They're a beatable team. BYU looks really good, by the way. West Virginia beat them handily a season ago, and WVU does not play them this year. West Virginia also does not play Utah, does not play Colorado. So a lot of these surprise teams, Colorado, BYU namely, they're not on the schedule. They're not on the schedule unless they meet them in Dallas in the Big 12 title game. So it will not be easy. Kansas State could beat West Virginia for sure. Iowa State could beat West Virginia and will be favored even on the road for sure. I think Iowa State will win that game, by the way. I think Rocco Beck is the real deal. Too bad he's not under center for West Virginia, even though obviously maybe Garrett Green will keep this clicking from what happened in Stillwater. I do think the road trip to Arizona, the longest in program history, is going to be really, really rough, but maybe West Virginia wins that game. Obviously, they can win a road game on a flight. They had to fly for this one. The Penn State game a year ago, Pitt, the backyard brawl, all of that. These are not flights. They've struggled with flights. And I guess they didn't even play well in the Penn State game a year ago, but the Penn State game this year, of course, was home. But the point of it is they've shown they can win even on hard road trips and long road trips and tough places to play now with this game under their belt. So you never know. Baylor, Texas Tech has been a surprise, but I don't think much of those teams. It could be easy down the stretch. They could go on a winning streak at the end. They could get to Dallas, maybe. Am I predicting it? No. I've always predicted about 8 wins. I still think that's kind of where they get 7, 8, 9 wins, anywhere in that neighborhood. I do think 8-4 is what I said. That's what I think is going to happen, which means you're losing some of those games, but maybe winning some too. But nonetheless, I did not think this was a dub. Did not think this was a win. And, it does not make up for losing the brawl. I know that'll sting for fans for a whole year, but at least you have another matchup next year. The rivalry is not over for this current series. It's not like you have 5 years to wait and that's it. And second of all, the Big 12 is what matters now. You would not rather have that game be a win and lose this one. You want to be 2-0 in conference play right now with this tough schedule, and they are. I think OK State was really worn down in this game. I'm glad that we won. Let's win the next one. Yeah, Todd. I mean, they got to be the mindset for fans. Oklahoma State, to me, did look like they were worn out. Their defense has not been up to snuff this year, to say the very least. They're down in games early, which is why they rarely can get Ollie Gordon going before the injury. He had 50 yards before the injury. He was having a similar game to CJ, for example, but left. And when you're down by that much, like they were against K-State a week ago, you can't run. So they can't do what they want to do, and their defense looks worse than even West Virginia's. I do want to ask you guys what you think of the actual gameplay in terms of, are you now more confident in the offense? Because the offense was clicking all freaking day long. Green did not make the mistakes. He did run when needed to. He looked like he had that fully under wraps on when to run, when to throw. Sliced their defense both through the air and on the ground, and obviously 4 picks going into this game through 4 games, had only 4 last year. It's been helter-skelter for Green this year. How do you think the offense played and then the defense too? The defense has been bad overall. The pass defense has been putrid. The pass defense basically lost Eli Holstein and Pitt on their own, allowing that 10-point comeback. And the pass rush has been really, really good. It's been good even since the Pitt game. TJ Jackson and company looked really good again in this game over Bowman or whoever for Oklahoma State, because they switched QBs. But the pass defense still is a major concern. That you did still see some open lanes there. They did score the 2 TDs both through the air off the pass defense, allowing those scores, or at least to set up those scores. So I'd be concerned about the pass defense for sure. But what do you guys think here? I'll stay as long as people are in the chat. I know we had a few. West Virginia, of course, if you're just tuning in, and I highly doubt that's the case, because you're probably enjoying the win and seeing Country Roads finally and actually getting to enjoy it. I wouldn't call this a major big win. This is not against a ranked team. This is not a normal 10-win Oklahoma State team. They are down this year. This is not Mike Gundy's best group. But you win in a tough place to play. You're 2-0 in conference play. Most people thought you were going to lose this game. You were an underdog going into this game by pretty much every major sports book, and you win convincingly in dominating fashion. Nobody had that on their bingo card. 38-14, run all over the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Green, injured, still comes back, ends up still performing, doesn't miss a beat. Nico looked fine, went in. Jaheim White finally had that big game. CJ got a couple touchdowns. The defense got turnovers in their favor after only 1 pick prior. They finally flipped the field and stopped momentum in its tracks, which is exactly what needed to happen in some past games that did not. Penn State, Pitt in particular, obviously the losses, even Kansas. And whenever Oklahoma State looked like they were maybe building something, you would see those turnovers. So there's nothing to be mad about in this game in particular, but the outlook, offense, defense, overall team coming up with a tough schedule to come, and obviously a really, really tough opponent in Iowa State, and a lot to deal with. Rocco Beck goes in the Rocco Beck sees his father go in the Hall of Fame. He's not yet in the Hall of Fame, but he's going to be motivated. Anthony Beck will be inducted in the Hall of Fame. He wasn't at the ceremony against Kansas. So Rocco will be there to see his dad. Rocco is playing well. Iowa State is clicking. It is a road game for the Cyclones. I would imagine they're still favored. Night game, the fans will be into it for the Mountaineers. Anything else, guys, from the chat? But again, head over to WV Sports Now for our coverage, and we will have several. We got a lot of Mountaineer reports coming up this coming week. Obviously, I'll be at Brown, give you coverage from there. We also have a reaction for any of you fans that see some of your friends on social media commenting. Maybe you're in the post. Ethan did it, so I actually haven't checked it out yet. But I trust him, and maybe you're there nonetheless. And West Virginia, Iowa State. West Virginia wins that game, and then we're having a totally different conversation, and it definitely would secure a ranking if they would have had that Pitt win. They don't have the Pitt win, but Pitt is probably ranked now. But you beat Iowa State, you might knock on some door even with the Pitt loss, because Pitt could be a top 20 team. And I do think Pitt's schedule's relatively easy. Eli Holstein's been good. I do think their schedule's easy. North Carolina is not that great of a team. I don't think Pitt is this dominant team the Pitt fans think they are, and the ACC is kind of weak this year. I do think Clemson will beat them. But West Virginia still, it looks better with them winning, as much as that sucks to say. Just like Pitt needs to root for West Virginia and hope the Mountaineers get those 8 wins to give them a quality win, because they did come back and win. But the Mountaineers get the big, big win over Oklahoma State, 38-4. And I mean the score, a big difference in that score, 38-14 here. on a Saturday evening in Stillwater. Does anyone have anything else from this game here? I can make this a quick one. I wanted to do something here. I want to do some type of post-game reaction here. Obviously, nothing for fans to get too angry about off of a big dominating victory, but I am home covering it, so why not? And obviously next week we'll be back in Morgantown at the game under the lights. Any of you going to be there? Anyone going to be there? I will tell you that obviously you can't wear the Coal Rush jersey because that is delayed. Sucks. I can hear that for fans. We are implementing getting better. That's funny, Todd. I could say they have a concept of getting better. For a while, I thought they had a concept of a defense, or not even so. The defense played real. I think the defense playing well in this game and holding Oklahoma State down, even though Bowman has struggled, is almost a better thing to see than the offense playing so well. The offense has scored points before, but the defense finally performing and showing up. This might be the best defensive performance since the backyard brawl in 2023 last year. And obviously the offense did nothing in that game. This is the best overall complete game, offense, defense, special teams, no blunders there all the way through on the road against a quality team, even though Oklahoma State's enduring a poor year in a long while. And they're not ranked. It's not a big win necessarily for Brown and his resume, but it's a win that no one can complain about, really. And the way they won it is a situation that no one can complain about. For the ceiling of this team, Matthew, and I said this before the year, I still believe this. I did think they'd beat Pitt. They shouldn't have blown the game. They should have beat Pitt, but Pitt's better than advertised, better than what anybody thought this year, and kind of what I thought could happen because of their easy schedule. But that blown game aside, I did think Penn State would beat them. I did think Penn State would probably kill them. I didn't think it'd be that bad, but I do think Penn State's an elite team. You win the FCS game. You beat Kansas. I think they should have done even better in that game, watching what's happened to the Jayhawks. And then you win this game that I thought would be a loss. So maybe this cancels out the overall situation with Pitt. The record's kind of what I thought it would be. I thought this team would win 8 games, and that would kind of be it. A similar year to last year, and then maybe win 9 in the bowl. But the ceiling, to answer your question, is getting to Dallas. I don't think they're going to get there. I do think they're going to lose to Iowa State next week. I do think they're going to get tripped up, maybe even on the road against a good Arizona team. I do. Maybe they lose another one of those quote unquote easier games against Baylor, UCF, Cincinnati, Texas Tech at the end of the year. They could go on a win streak and win those. Those are all winnable. They might be favored in some of those games, but maybe they lose 1 or 2 of those. I do think this is more likely an 8-4 team, similar to last year. You hope it's not worse than that, because then obviously it's a tougher schedule, but that could change and ruin the vibes. I also do think anything 7 and up will keep Neil Brown. Maybe again, I think the win total bar that fans keep bringing up is not where Ren thinks. People can say what they want. I don't think they want to fire Brown, and a winning season here is going to certainly save him. But I think the ceiling is Dallas. The ceiling is Dallas. I don't think they're going to get there. I think they'll be tripped up. I still think Kansas State, those type of teams, have the driver's seat to getting there. And West Virginia, as I said earlier, they do have the benefit of not playing BYU, Colorado, Utah even. Utah could still get there. The surprise teams are the normal powerhouse teams of K-State and Utah. Not on the schedule this year. Kansas State is, but the other ones are not. And schedule's got a lot coming up here that's still brutal, and they're going to drop one of those games at the end for me in that 4-game slate that's easier at the end. They'll probably drop 1 or 2 of those. I think 8 wins is more likely, but the ceiling is Dallas, and the ceiling being Dallas, you could get there with 8 or 9 wins. This conference is so wide open. Maybe 8 wins in the regular season gets you to Dallas as the number 2 seed. I'm not saying it'd be incredibly impressive, but if you get there and then you win that, you're in the playoff. And people can argue on social media that wouldn't be fair. For example, there's a weird scenario that could occur. The Mountaineers could win the Big 12, could get in the playoff as a 3 or a 4 seed, and Penn State, if they don't win the Big 10, I'm imagining they're still in as an at-large. But if they lose to USC and then lose to Ohio State, maybe they're not in. West Virginia is in, and Penn State destroyed the Mountaineers. I would hear that from a Penn State fan that is not really fair with the system, but Power 4 champs get in. Power 4 champs get in. ACC and Big 12 are Power 4. So they would get in, and they're not going to apologize for it. That is the path. I do think Dallas is the ceiling, whether it be 8, 9 wins or whatever it takes to get there. because this is so wide open of a conference. I don't think anyone's really elite. I don't think anyone here is winning the national title, not even Utah, but they maybe are the best of the bunch, K-State too. And I would imagine that it's very likely that the number 2 team, the number 2 seed in Dallas, maybe has single-digit victories and is not at 10 plus. Maybe one of them is, maybe not both. So that's the ceiling. I don't think West Virginia gets there, but I do think 7, 8, 9 wins are very much in play, and anywhere in that neighborhood, obviously above 7, 8 plus gives you a fighting chance. I think 8's most likely in what I predicted, but Dallas and playing for the Big 12 title is the ceiling. That's the ceiling. I'm not predicting it, but that's the ceiling. Yeah, our zone coverage still needs some work. 100%. A lot of defensive lapses still in that game. They did face a struggling offense, especially an offense that's really struggled to throw the ball. Bowman really struggled to throw the ball entering this game. That was their problem against Kansas State too. So West Virginia's pass defense to me still looked concerning despite the overall numbers being good. The pass rush now week after week is playing well, that you have to admit the pass rush looks good. The pass rush looked good. And that's a number one thing that can even help out the pass defense being weak. So they stopped the ground game for the most part, and the pass rush looks good at the QB. Pass defense, though, secondary-wise, I'm still definitely concerned for West Virginia on that regard. And the offense has always scored points even in losses, but really clicked in this game, so it has to make you feel good. Third down and long is still a thing, Todd. Yeah, but they didn't have it be as much of a lapse as it was in the past. I mean, Kansas in particular almost had some life because of that. Pitt was guns blazing on third down. So, yeah, that's definitely still a concern too. Lastly, as I probably will wrap this up soon, unless I get somehow flooded here with chat activity, I do also want to ask those of you who are here, what else besides the secondary and the pass rush do you think could hold this team back? Is there something else? That's where everyone points, and that is a weakness. That is likely why maybe they only win 7-6 games, 8 at the most, and they're not in Dallas. And that's why they lost to Pitt. That's why they blew the game against Pitt. That's why Eli Holstein went crazy as a redshirt freshman who now has Pitt undefeated for the first time since 1991, as insane as that sounds. But what else? Is there something else besides just the pass rush? Because, again, pass defense is looking good. Running game is looking good. Green played well, but I would argue maybe Green's smarts, and if he doesn't make mistakes, that could hold this team back. If he starts making mistakes again like he did earlier in the year, that could be a problem. Special teams has been fine. You're not breaking anything, but it's been fine. Wide receiver play has been deeper. Didn't obviously play well as a group against Penn State, but from that point on, the wide receiver group has been fine, and Green spread it out in this game more than just living with Hudson Clement. There's not that many other glaring weaknesses outside the pass rush. I guess that's the point. That's why this Big 12 is wide open. That's why they could do this. I'm not predicting it again. I don't think they'll even beat Iowa State, whether they debut the Cole Rush jerseys or not, and they're going to debut them. I don't think they're going to win that game. That's a really, really good Iowa State team. Rocco Beck's really, really good. His dad taught him well, even though dad was a tight end. He's a QB. It's a tough place to play, obviously, at night under the lights with a new uniform coming out for Iowa State. That's a tough game, even though they're ranked. And they're waiting to be vulnerable. They're waiting to get nipped this year because someone usually nips somebody in the Big 12. Maybe they get nipped by West Virginia and the Mountaineers are 3-0 in conference play. Is that insane? That could happen. That definitely could happen. Anything else, guys, while I'm still here? Okay, wide receiver blocking. That's interesting. Are you meaning the wide receivers blocking for the ground game? Is that what is that what you're talking about? Obviously, the ground game got clicking in this game. Tight ends do a lot of that as well. Obviously, Davis really underrated in that regard. Doesn't get much love at all. Okay, yeah, I don't. When the ground game doesn't get going, I honestly know if it's the wide receiver. I mean, yeah, there have been some missed blocks, but it's hard to put that on them. You can make an argument the offensive line has not been as good as advertised. I do think the offensive line has been good this year. Good, not great. Last year's O-line was great outside the Oklahoma game. Yeah, that was a great catch by Davis. Yeah, and he has shown in practice that he can make receptions. He can make catches. They never use him for that. Obviously, Cole Taylor's there to be the pass catching tight end, but Davis can do it. I don't think he could have done it years ago. He can do it now, but they just don't use him for it. So yeah, he had a great catch to open up the game. Imagining that's right there where your brain went. Yeah, when I bring up Davis, it's where your brain's going to go. And that right there kind of set the tone for West Virginia. He can do that. He can do it. They just don't obviously write him up to do that often. But I think the offensive line also, not to say it's going to be a major problem. I don't think it's going to hold this team back in particular. The pass defense will probably be the issue if they are held back. But the offensive line could even be better, blocking wise, could even be better. I mean, aside from the controversial penalty in the Pitt game, it's not been perfect at times, and they have missed the losses from a season ago. But the secondary is the major weakness for sure, and I still see that there. I still see that being a problem, despite the numbers being okay in this game, and obviously despite West Virginia winning this game big. And Bowman threw 116, completed 53% of his passes. Rangel then came in, threw 75 yards, completed 80%. So he completed 4 for 5, but 75 yards, nothing close to what an FCS quarterback was doing, what Eli Hosteen was doing. They were allowing 300 yards week after week, of course. Not the case here. Only 227 total yards allowed by West Virginia for that Oklahoma State offense. So 558 yards to 227. Just incredible. Only 191 yards through the air for the Cowboys with 2 QBs. So the numbers are there. I did still see some spots that are concerning against better quarterbacks, better offenses, and better teams, and they're going to face one of them in Rocco Beck and the Iowa State Cyclones coming up next week. Any thoughts on that game? That is the next matchup here. What your thoughts are on that matchup? And then I will probably wrap this up here and enjoy the rest of my evening as the Mountaineers won. So probably less drama to be covering here for post-game coverage of this game. Anything else, guys? Any thoughts on that matchup? I do still think Iowa State is going to be the favorite. I would expect them probably to win the game. I do think they're a better team. They played well, and Rocco Beck is the real deal. They're much better than last year, and I thought maybe entering the year they were overrated, but no, they've proven to be good. But everyone in the Big 12 gets tripped up. Is that the game they get tripped up? It'll be a tough place to play in Morgantown under the lights at night. The atmosphere you wanted against Penn State, you're getting it to finally debut the Cole Rush jerseys in the middle of the season now. About Green's slide. So it hasn't been much of a conversation overall in coverage, but yeah, it's obviously a thing. I know the coaches have brought it up a little bit, and it was talked about on the broadcast here. I will say, and it's the same thing that I've been saying that's been said by Brown and everyone about Green. Green is a playmaker, okay? Green's a leader of this team. You love to watch Green for his moxie, for his aggressiveness, for the fact that he wanted to return to a blowout and really didn't want to ever come out of this game, even though he left this game with an injury. I mean, certainly I maybe would have taken him out earlier than he actually left this game because the score was well in hand. And I know he wanted that final touchdown, but Green's aggressiveness, Green's moxie, Green's wanting to almost, I feel like if it was up to Green, he would go out and try to tackle defenders coming at him rather than avoid a tackle. It always looks like that's going to kill him and eventually hurt him at times. I mean, especially in this game. I don't think it's an issue because his eligibility is done after this year. Like, this is just how Green is. Brown even said this a couple weeks ago that I'd love for him to check it down more, and he did a lot more in this game, but that's just not who he is right now. I think Brown's finally come to terms. So have I, so have a lot of people. Green is just who he is. It's feast or famine. He's not going to be a 65% completion percent passer. That's never going to happen. I don't think he's even going to get to 60. FBS opponents, he's not there this year. He's not even overall there, including the FCS game. But he's going to give you big plays through his arm, through his legs, but also will make you scared he's going to get hurt. So I don't think he's an NFL quarterback, but any quarterback who's going to be playing from 4 years at any level needs to learn how to slide, needs to do it effectively. Chad Scott brought up this past week that Green is not good at sliding. You would have thought he would be good as a baseball player with his dad as a baseball coach. You would have thought he would have learned that. The sliding thing killed RG3 back in the day, if anyone recalls. There is no reason why he can't learn to slide. There's no reason why he doesn't slide. There's no reason why he's going at defenders. There's no reason why he doesn't just live to fight another day more often and just slide more. It'd be better for the team. But he's not going to do it. I don't think it's going to happen. Green is just who he is, what he is, and that's just going to keep on being Garrett Green. This performance of Garrett Green is good enough to win. The performance against Penn State, really, I think every game prior to this one is not good enough. The numbers were kind of okay, but it was up and down too much. The 4 picks were there. The one against Pitt was really bad. It was like he throwing up a punt. That wasn't smart football. I don't think he's played smart football prior to this game and just relied on being athletic and getting it done that way. This game is good enough. He was smarter in this game in particular, outside of just being athletic and showing that. So we need to see it obviously more than just the one game against a bad team with a bad defense, but he needs to slide. He should slide. He should be better at it with the baseball in his past. But if I had to predict, this is Garrett Green. Yeah, I mean, again, if West Virginia beats Iowa State, it's gonna be because of that atmosphere. That is a good Iowa State team, but that atmosphere is gonna make it a really, really tough place for them to play. Rocco Beck's gonna have a hard time hearing every call. This defense plays like this, or plays like they did in the brawl last year. The pass rush playing like this to get to the QB will give him more fits than he's probably had all season long. It will depend, and it likely is going to be a shootout. Can West Virginia's offense keep hanging with him, because he's going to be able to slice and dice this West Virginia secondary? I still expect that, even though they played well against Bowman in Stillwater. That is still a problem, and they are a good team. But would it be unheard of, especially coming off this game and coming off the Kansas game and now riding high? No, especially with it being home at night under the lights. We know how the fans will be there, obviously, and the Cole Rush jerseys. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy, and the fans could try to kind of will you. They helped at the end of the Kansas game. Brown talked about it. The fans can make an impact. West Virginia doesn't lose too many night games, whether it's Neil Brown era or not. So, and think about that, guys. Anyone who wants off this climb, bring the energy to that game nonetheless, because you win that game. West Virginia's 3-0 in conference play, and you don't play Colorado, you don't play BYU, and you don't play Utah. Yeah, there's games you're going to lose. This team is not going to win every single game from here on out. It won't happen. But you're kind of then in a driver's seat to at least have a chance at the end of the season to get to Dallas with an easier slate at the end there. You don't got to be the 1 seed to get to Dallas. You can get there as the 2. And then you win that game. You got a major conference title, the 16th in program history, the first, obviously, since the Orange Bowl year. And you're then now in the playoff based on the rules, and you don't got to apologize for anything else that happened in out-of-conference play. It does not matter. So that's motivation, too, for the fans. I think they're back into this. Back in black. Let's go Mountaineers there. I'm going to shut this off here now and enjoy the rest of my evening. Obviously, the coverage is there at WV Sports now. The Mountaineers won big. I can't say it's an official big win because Oklahoma State is not good. Neither is Kansas. But these wins got to really feel big and feel good for the fan base. And the way West Virginia won the game can make you kind of feel like it's a big win, because it can pump life back into the fans, the media, the players, the coaches. The vibes are now obviously good. Conference play matters more than out of conference play. You have that Pitt win, you're probably ranked, but you don't have it. You don't have it. You're 3-2, you're 2-0 in conference play. And the reality is you still got your whole goal in front of you of what you want to achieve. Conference win before this season was the goal, winning the conference title. That is still right there. You do that, and then you're in the playoff. And the way this team played, both offense, defense, all the way through, I even like the aggressive way Brown called this game. I'll say that. He kept putting his pedal to the metal, even up big, not wanting to avoid, wanting to avoid a loss, wanting to avoid them coming back, wanting to avoid anything happening of a catastrophe. Maybe too aggressive, but 4th down Brown is the conservative code from 2 years ago is gone. He's willing to go for it. He's shown it now for 2 years. Doesn't always work, but that aggressiveness also, when you keep the pedal to the metal and you get up in games, they're going to be a tough team to come back against with that pass rush, with this offense, if West Virginia can get leads like they did in this game and build on them. So that will do it for this post-game show. We won't have one of these after the game next week, obviously, because I will be at the game covering it, but maybe we'll have something on the field. Mountaineer Report to hear Ethan and I whether it be here on YouTube. So click subscribe, download here on YouTube, hit the notification bell for more of these, or whenever videos are uploaded here to YouTube. Browns pressers now. Darren DeVries and the Mountaineers basketball wise getting out there too. So any of those videos after their press conferences and games, etc. And of course, find us audio wise for Mountaineer Report, Apple, Spotify, TuneIn over there. And you can also download and subscribe as well to the audio side of Mountaineer Report for more of this talk show type content. And maybe we'll do some lives to get you guys back in the mix as well. I don't have as many opportunities to do lives as those who are always home for games, but I did enjoy this after this one. And of course, there's no reason for Mountaineer fans to not be enjoying this night, this weekend after that big performance and that win.